What is happening, everybody? Greg Ehrenberg here from Stokastic.com, and it's Thursday afternoon. And what we do here on Thursdays is we look at the marketplace over at DraftKings for Reignmakers NFL, and we try to find out what lineups we could build using the data and tools we have over at Stokastic.com. And also, we look for some of the best players to target on the secondary market. So players that project well, players that are good values, fun lineup building show, and any questions that you guys have, throw them into the YouTube chat. I'll be able to get to them. Just me, myself here. And I do like doing this. We break down the slate, and it's a fun way to look at everything. And whatever it is that you guys want me to focus on, throw it in YouTube. We can talk about it, whether it's the main slate. We can look at the Thursday night football, look at some of the best players to buy for tonight's game. Whatever it is you guys want to talk about it, the show is for you. And if you haven't checked out Reignmakers yet over at DraftKings, now's the time to sign up. Because when you click on the link below, you get a totally free starters pack, which is going to give you players that you could use to fill out an entire lineup for this weekend slate. And it is 100% free to claim that starters pack, and you could win real cash prizes with it. So claim that starters pack. You're going to get a quarterback of your choosing. The rest of the lineup is going to be filled out with players that are playing this weekend, and you could throw that lineup right into any contest you want, any of the core contest or the beginner contest, which everybody wins in those. So go check that out for sure. Click on the link below. And already, we've got David Lynch with a question here in the YouTube chat. He wants to know, am I crazy for thinking Justin Fields is a good buy low right now? So let's go ahead and look at a couple of different data points. Most notably, let's look at his price on the secondary market relative to our projection. And we don't have very great odds on the Bears to be the top scoring team on this entire slate as far as a stack is concerned. But Justin Fields is one of the rare unique quarterbacks that I actually am cool with playing naked, and you wouldn't have to worry about stacking options, because where the most upside possible could come from Justin Fields is if he doesn't throw the football and he chooses to actually run this weekend, which he did a ton of last year and we've seen basically none of so far this year. So let's go and look at Justin Fields prices. Justin Fields, we'll type him in here. Go look at our projection for him. And he does project really well from a value standpoint. We have him projected for 21.86 DK points this weekend with a core floor price of only $9.24. Without a doubt, if you want to buy low on Justin Fields, David, now is the time. You are never going to, well, I shouldn't say never going to get a lower floor price on him, because a couple more bad games, and then I think his market really tanks. And then we start to question, like, is Justin Fields even going to be the Bears starting quarterback next year? But as far as fantasy goes, Justin Fields has much upside at the quarterback position as anybody. So I actually do think this is a pretty sharp buy low. Let's also look at, instead of just sorting by Fields, let's sort by QBs. All right, so sort by QB. Let's sort by projection. And here's what we have in terms of fantasy point projections for this Sunday. So, well, actually, not just this Sunday. This is for all the players, but primarily I'm going to be focusing on the main slate. So let's just type in main here. So it filters just the main slate players. And yeah, look at our projections. We have as the number one overall projected quarterback for this weekend, Josh Allen, but he also has the superstar status. Second highest projected quarterback this weekend in our projections, it is Justin Fields, projected for 21.86 fantasy points. Yeah, not only do I think this is a good buy low, just potentially for the rest of the season, I think it's a great buy low for this weekend in particular. Look at the quarterbacks that he's in between here. We've got Justin Fields projected for 0.2 of a fantasy point more than Jalen Hurts. He's projected for one less fantasy point than Josh Allen, but both of them have superstar status and are more expensive, which of course they'd be more expensive at this point in the season. Then you got Justin Herbert, who also has superstar status. Let's see, if we sort by quarterbacks who are non-superstars, we have Justin Fields projected for 21.86. Kirk Cousins is the next closest non-superstar quarterback, projected for 20.77 fantasy points. But the floor price on Kirk Cousins is double the floor price on Justin Fields. Not only do I don't think you're crazy, David. I think you're sharp. I think this is a pretty good buy low for Justin Fields. We know what his upside is. If we look at his rare cards, the floor price of a rare Justin Fields is $26.50. And then the rare on Kirk Cousins, $60. Yeah, I think Justin Fields might be one of the best values available in the marketplace, just period, for this weekend. I love it. I think it's a really good thought there, David. Let's go and look at the main slate now and look at some of the other teams we might want to target. We've got the Chargers. We've got Minnesota. I don't know if you guys have realized this, but very often we've got kind of similar teams that are projecting at the top of the top stack odds. Chargers, Vikings, Dolphins. I feel like nearly every week we do this show, we look at the top stack odds, and it's one of these three teams. But we'll dig into them. These three teams always at the top of our board here. And we have a couple of reasons for this. Number one, just their odds of scoring a lot of points, very high. Those are teams that have been really high scoring so far this year. But also, look at our projections in terms of how often we expect these teams to pass the football compared to how often we expect these teams to run the football. Chargers, running the football in 39.6% of their plays. That has them as the number one overall team with the best top stack odds. But also, Austin Eckler, questionable to play. I tend to think he's more likely to play this week than not. He's missed the last couple of games. I've been on Joshua Kelly for DFS. He has sucked. So I hope Austin Eckler, please play so I don't have to roster this absolute bag of garbage that is Joshua Kelly, because I can't quit him. He always projects well, and it hasn't gone well. But Austin Eckler, I do think is going to end up returning this weekend. Then we've got the Vikings with the second highest top stock odds. And once again, rush percentage, only 34.4%. A team that's expected to throw the football a whole bunch. Same for the Dolphins, sub 40% run rate. The other team in here that's also kind of similar is we have the Cincinnati Bengals against the Tennessee Titans. We know the Tennessee Titans, very, very good run defense, less good in the pass defense. And as such, we have the Bengals projected to throw the football 68% of the time, run the football 32%. So that also might be a team that's interesting for us to look at, as the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow was dealing with the calf injury last week in prime time, played through it, didn't look 100%, but he was still fairly effective and did play better than he played the first couple weeks of the year. But still, let's go and look at the Chargers and see what is standing out there. So we'll take any of these filters off for positions, and let's go and sort by the Chargers. So key injury news for the Chargers this weekend. You guys already know about this, but in case it slipped your mind, it's stuff that's going to be pertinent as we're breaking this down. Austin Eckler, already talked about him. Questionable to play. I expect him to play. Mike Williams, torn ACL, out for the entire season. So what does that mean for a player like Keenan Allen? He projects for a ton of fantasy points and also doesn't carry the superstar status. Keenan Allen's been an absolute monster to open up the year, and that is only going to lead to even more targets for him now that Mike Williams is out. We have Austin Eckler projected for 23.23 fantasy points. He is very pricey with a core floor price of $23.99, but he is the number one projected non-superstar player for us this weekend. If you have Keenan Allen, you're playing him this week. No brainer. What if we're looking for some cheaper players? Shout out to Trench Baby in the YouTube chats. And what's the word, Greg? And then the 100 emoji. What's up, man? And by the way, anybody else watching, if you have questions, throw them into YouTube chat, or just do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. The word. So we're trying to find the best values of the weekend slate here. Let's see. What are we projecting the best in terms of wide receivers? They're going to slot in, pick up more of a role in place of Mike Williams. There's two guys that come to mind here. Quentin Johnston, first-round pick of the Chargers in the NFL draft, and then Joshua Palmer, who was the better fantasy performer of the two last weekend. Now, with that said, here's what we have for projections between these two. Quentin Johnston, we are projecting for 10.86 fantasy points. Joshua Palmer, 9.57. Floor price is about similar between the two. Actually, it is Joshua Palmer's a little bit more expensive. So with that in mind, I think that Johnston makes for the better buy. I know he hasn't been all that involved in the offense to this point this year, but this is a team that used draft capital on him. They used a first-round pick to draft Johnston. And in addition to that, you have to think that as the season goes on, he's going to feel more comfortable in the offense. He's going to be more acclimated to what they're doing. So Quentin Johnston, I think, is the better buy of the cheap wide receivers for the Chargers in light of the injury to Mike Williams. And Sprite Soda wants to know best value QB this week. Yes, we were talking a little bit about this at the top of the show, Sprite Soda, and it was based on a question that David Lynch had asked, who wants to know who whether Justin Fields was a good buy low. And we're looking at some of the data, and Yeah, not only do I think he's the best value QB, I think he's the best player you could buy, period, right now on Reignmakers. So Sprite Soda, Justin Fields, kind of stealing the thunder of David Lynch based on his question there because he was the one who initially brought it up, but I think that's the answer. Best value QB, Justin Fields. See, any other pass catchers, like I don't want to buy Joshua Kelly cards at this point. He had the opportunity with Eckler out. Even if Eckler's out again, I'm not dying to play Joshua Kelly in Reignmakers, right? DraftKings Classic contest, you can make a case for it because he's still cheap and he's still going to have some sort of opportunity. But the idea that in a non-salary format like Reignmakers that Joshua Kelly is going to be optimal, it's just not very likely to me based on what we've seen so far. So no real interest in Joshua Kelly. Of everybody on the Chargers, I do think that Quentin Johnston is the best overall buy now that we no longer have Mike Williams in the picture. Good matchup as well this week against the Raiders. Should be a pretty high scoring game. Let's go back and look at the other top stacks. Follow up from Sprite Soda just saying thank you. Yeah, man, no problem. And any other questions you guys have, throw them in. More than happy to answer those and break down the slate with y'all. Minnesota Vikings as one of the top overall projected top stacks here against the Carolina Panthers. Although I also want to quickly check on the Raiders to see if there's any good run back options. Any good Raiders run backs going up against the Chargers? Las Vegas. Are you guys like me, where you reach a certain age and it's like teams change locations, and in my head, I'm looking for the Raiders. I'm still looking for Oakland, not looking for Las Vegas. Happens to me all the time when I'm trying to sort stuff like that or search for something. Josh Jacobs looks like a pretty good value right now. And he's been disappointing this year relative to last year, but still, he's a guy who's on the field nearly every play for this team. He's capable of catching the ball out of the backfield in a situation where the Raiders are trailing in games. We've got him projected for 16.13 fantasy points this weekend, low ask of $8. Here's another good buy low that I really think makes sense with some of these Chargers lineups. You want a mini stack of this game? Keenan Allen, Josh Jacobs, or you could also go Josh Jacobs with like a Quentin Johnston if you're looking to go really cheap. I think this makes a good amount of sense as a run back in Charger stacks is going to Josh Jacobs. Let's see how he compares to other running backs. Non-superstar running backs, though. All right, so non-superstar running backs. And let's turn off any of these other filters. All right, so in terms of non-superstar running backs, we have, or going to be spoiling something here because the next game I was going to break down was going to be Vikings-Panthers, and we've got Miles Sanders projecting really well with a low ask price. Where's Jacobs here? On this page. All right, relative to these other guys, he actually doesn't project quite as well as I thought he might have. There are some better running back buys than Josh Jacobs. So less interest in him now that I've looked at some of the other running backs. But look at Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders, low floor price of $4.55. We even project for 17.83 DK points this weekend. So of the non-superstar running backs, the only ones projecting better than Miles Sanders for us right now. And by the way, also, we're about to talk about the Vikings because the Vikings are another team with a lot of upside. So Carolina Panthers, Miles Sanders, 17.83 fantasy points, 455 low ask price. Bijan Robinson projected for 17.96 fantasy points, but a 14.25 low ask price. So you're looking at, about 3x the price point for a tenth more of a fantasy point. Miles Sanders looks pretty good relative to that. And then here you've got Tony Pollard projecting for 1.7 more fantasy points, but his price point is 4x that of Miles Sanders. So Sanders looks pretty good right now in the secondary market as somebody to get for cheap. What if we look at all running backs? Some of the superstar running backs like Derrick Henry have sucked this year and have not been players that we really want to be targeting on the secondary market. But yeah, even as far as superstars go, only Christian McCaffrey is projecting better than Miles Sanders for this week. And then also keep in mind, Bijan Robinson's on the primetime slate. He's not even on the main slate. But Miles Sanders, third overall highest projected running back for us on the main slate as of right now. Looks like a really good buy at 455. Let's go and look at the other Minnesota Vikings. I shouldn't say the other Minnesota Vikings. I should say players that we're going to play on the opposite side of Miles Sanders. So other players from that game that we might want to be targeting. So looking at the Vikings here, and Alexander Madison, We've got I still got running backs on. I was wondering where everybody else was. Still got the running back filter on. All right, here we go. So no shock here at all. Top projected player, Justin Jefferson. As far as the skill position players go, by a mile from the Vikings. Low ask price, $17.50. Got him projected for 22.04 fantasy. What's perfectly good superstar option this weekend. One of the best superstars you could be rostering is Justin Jefferson at the wide receiver spot. Kirk Cousins, certainly a good QB play as well, but he's a little pricey for me on the secondary market. I don't really want to be paying $18.73 for Kirk Cousins. I really think the way to build your lineups this weekend, if you're looking to buy a player on the secondary market, go Justin Fields and run him naked. And entertainment in the YouTube chat saying Raheem Mostert and the Dolphins defense. Dude, last weekend, the Dolphins, I mean, you could have built a lineup in Reignmakers, just nothing but Dolphins players, and you just would have crushed everything. 70 real life points. Everybody had massive fantasy games. Could have gone with Tua, go with Mostert, go with Achan. Used to say A-Chain, but now we've found out that he wants his name to pronounce A-Chan. And then, yeah, I mean, Tyreek Hill had a massive game. The defense was good. It could have been better had it not been for some of the garbage time points scored on the other side of the game. But either way, the Dolphins absolutely crushed last weekend. It's kind of tough for me to buy into Alexander Mattison. I know he actually had a really good fantasy game last week. He was somebody that was on coming into the year. But now that they've added Cam Akers, it's still going to be Mattison as the guy this weekend, in my opinion. But next weekend, going forward, because keep in mind, we're buying these cards not just for this one slate, but also outlook for the entire season. And I'm not really sure that Alexander Mattison is going to be the guy for the Vikings the entire year. He's going to be a big part of the offense as long as he remains healthy. But is he ultimately going to end up splitting snaps with Cam Akers? I think there's a pretty good possibility of that, which makes me a little bit less apt to buy Alexander Mattison on the secondary market. And then TJ Hawkinson's got off to a really good start this year. If you guys are playing the deep contest where you're playing, a defense, a kicker, a tight end, wider, like the whole deal, I do think a TJ Hawkinson at $6, not a bad buy for that. But overall highlights from this Minnesota-Carolina game, Justin Jefferson, really good superstar option. And then on the other side of the game, Miles Sanders, I think one of the better skill position values we have on the entire slate. Let's go ahead and look at the Miami Dolphins now. I know we've got Entertainment in the YouTube chat, who I assume is probably a Dolphins fan based on some of his messages there, where he said, Raheem Mostert, Dolphins defense, and then the fire emoji. And this is the team with the next best top stack odds for us. So let's dig into the Miami Dolphins. And my gut feeling here, without having looked into it any more than what I'm about to show on screen, is I think the Dolphins are pretty likely to be overpriced on the secondary market after last week. One thing I've noticed from doing this show on Thursdays and really evaluating the secondary market by using the tools that we have on the site is there's a lot of recency bias into what the prices are of players at the floor. So one that really stood out to me is that after week one, Calvin Ridley was the most expensive non-superstar player you could buy. Calvin Ridley was super expensive. His floor price was something like $21.96, I think it was at the time I was doing the show after week one on Thursday. And now Calvin Ridley, and then we'll sort by Miami. Now Calvin Ridley's floor price after a couple of mediocre games, $729. So his floor price has been cut to a third of what it was. And this is just all based on, he has a good game, everybody wants to buy him. He has a couple of bad games, and then everybody is like, panic, sell Calvin Ridley. So with that in mind, let's see what some of the floor prices are for the Miami Dolphins, because I see Entertainment in the YouTube chat is following up saying, Eagles fan actually, but I like them this week. And yeah, I understand why wanting to like a team that just scored 70 points, but I'm interested to see what some of these floor prices end up looking like. All right, so floor prices here relative to projections. Tua's floor price, $19, more or less where it's been the last couple of weeks. And then you've got Tyreek Hill at $18. How did Tyreek Hill compare to, I think Justin Jefferson is slightly cheaper and then also projects a little bit better. Is that correct in saying that for us? Justin Jefferson, yes. Justin Jefferson, $17.50 floor price, 22.04 projection. So with that in mind, I'm going to prioritize Justin Jefferson over Tyreek Hill this weekend. Something else as well, there was no Jalen Waddle last week for the Dolphins. This week, I expect Waddle to be back. He's been practicing with the team this week. He was out due to a concussion last week. I think the extra week, he should be good to go. Now, with that said, who knows ultimately what the Dolphins will do? I'm not going to guarantee Waddle plays. My best guess is that he's going to, but we know the Tua situation with concussions last year. I just don't think this team is screwing around when it comes to concussions. But Waddle, I'm assuming the most likely scenario is he's good to go. If that is the case, really good buy, in my opinion. $7.25 for Jalen Waddle on the secondary market. Project for 13.03 fantasy points. Waddle is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And at times, his fantasy production could certainly get overshadowed by Tyreek Hill. He could also be a little bit out of sight, out of mind, because he just put up 70 real-life points with him out of the picture. But Jalen Waddle, if he's good to play this week, which I do think is the most likely case, I like him as a buy. Only $7.25 is the low ask price. I think he is the best value that we have right now on the Miami Dolphins. I don't really know what to make of the running back situation going forward because Achane looked so good last week, but it's the only time we've really seen him play. And it's not like Mostert looked bad either, right? I mean, Mostert also had a monster game and has been terrific as of late. But with this running back split, there's no way that I could pay $13.50 the floor price from Raheem Mostert. Mostert's twice the price of Calvin Ridley right now in the secondary market. Achane is a little more reasonably priced, but are we convinced he's going to get more of the touches over Mostert? I'm not. I think it's probably going to be a split going forward. Both of them could be fantasy studs based on what we saw last week. Each of them had, a million yards and 700 touchdowns apiece. So we've seen scenarios where they could coexist and each have fantasy potential. But last week was an outlier. They're not putting up 70 real-life points every week. So as much as I like each of these guys individually, if you draft them in best ball, great, you're killing the game. But I think that they're a little bit too expensive for me in the secondary market as far as Reignmakers goes. What I have the most interest in is, let's say the game starts on Sunday and Achane is the starter over Mostert to open the game. Then I think you can go in and just be like, oh, these look like really good buys for the long term here on Achane. But at least for now, I'm not really looking to invest in the Dolphins backfield. If you've got these guys, go ahead and play them. But I don't really want to pay, like I said, the prices on some of these guys. Mostert, $13.50 is his core floor price. $34, the rare floor price. Just an expensive. You're buying him at a peak. There's just no way that price is going to uphold going forward. So Jalen Waddle, best buy from the Dolphins. Let's go ahead and look at some of the Thursday night football now. Let's take off these filters. And now we will go to Thursday night football. I have to type in Thursday. I forget we have it tagged as. Yeah, Thursday. Question from David Lynch in the YouTube chat. Not sure how much showdown you play, but do you have any tips for getting unique when you only get to roster 4 players? It's tough sometimes. The one thing, though, also is, this is where, at least for showdown, the serial numbers become a little bit more of a priority, right? Because the way that you really do differentiate is not always with the players, but I think just by making sure you invest in some of the lower serial numbers. Because, we've got Thursday night football tonight. I've got everybody sorted right here by projection. And, there's a pretty big drop-off. It's just based on our projections, it's very likely to me that you're going to want Amon-Ra St. Brown. You're going to want Jared Goff. You're going to want Jordan Love. And then, unsure who it is that big honking going on outside my house. I don't know what that was about. I don't know if you guys could hear that, but it distracted me. So anyway, for tonight's showdown contest, here is where we have very clear tiers. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff, Jordan Love are all projecting 3+ fantasy points about better than anybody else in the entire slate. So you want to play one of these 3 guys. Or you want to play all 3 of these guys, I should say. You want to play one of these 3 in the captain spot, the 1.5x multiplier. If you want to get different, it would be in one of the other spots. The chalk lineup for today is Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff, Jordan Love, and Aaron Jones. But which player could we find that maybe could be the 4th player to differentiate a little bit? With that said, still, I think the most reasonable thing you want to do is, prioritize getting to the lower serial number cards and then playing some of the higher projected guys. That aside, what is a player who has a reasonable upside that's a little bit cheaper here? So our options, David Montgomery, $333 core floor price. Jahmyr Gibbs, 645. Sam Laporta, 525. And once again, the guy who projects fourth best for us that I think a lot of the field is going to be going. Oh, actually, I missed it. David Montgomery here, 260. All right, the answer to me is going to be David Montgomery. And I think that you could, and tell me if this logic makes sense, David. I think you could figure out who is going to be contrarian based on the core floor prices. If players are paying more for, Amon-Ra St. Brown, $13.99, Jared Goff, $14.73, I assume that means these are the players the field is going out to purchase, to buy for Thursday Night Football. When I see David Montgomery at $2.60, it indicates to me the field does not have interest in David Montgomery, which kind of benefits us in multiple ways, right? We found somebody who is not very desired by the field, therefore lower owned. And in addition to that, better value for us. He is our fifth best projected player on the entire showdown slate. The only players projecting better than him are Aaron Jones, and it's always a little bit iffy with Aaron Jones and his workload with A.J. Dillon, especially when you consider he's coming back from injury after missing time as Aaron Jones, and then the quarterbacks, and then a stud wide receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I feel really good about these three guys. I do think that if you want to differentiate, the place you're going to do it with is that fourth lineup spot, and it does look to me like David Montgomery fits the bill for that. 260 as the low price on his core floor. 645 is the low floor on Jahmyr Gibbs. Sam Laporta, 525. Christian Watson coming back from injury, but he's expected to play limited snaps, which kind of makes me think it's unrealistic for him to hit an upside. But even him, nearly double the price of the core floor on David Montgomery. So I don't always think there's a great answer, but as I'm looking through our projections, I think that rostering David Montgomery is a pretty reasonable way to get unique and roster him tonight. As far as the MVP goes, let's see. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, $13.99. Jared Goff, $14.73. Love, $14.40. So I would say my favorite overall lineup that you could build for showdown tonight is Amon-Ra St. Brown in the captain spot, and then Jared Goff, Jordan Love, and David Montgomery in the flex spots. That's the way I would go about doing it. Based on the core floor price, I do think that Goff and Love are probably going to be a little bit more popular in the multiplier spots than Amon-Ra St. Brown. See if there's anybody else who stands out. Like a lot of these guys have similar projections. Montgomery, Gibbs, Laporta to an extent, Christian Watson. Are there any deep flyers? I mean, I guess A.J. Dillon's only 95 cents. If you want to play into the narrative that maybe Aaron Gordon isn't 100%, Aaron Jones isn't 100%, maybe that A.J. Dillon gets a little bit more workload because of that. Also, maybe A.J. Dillon gets more of the goal line touches because Aaron Jones is coming off the injury. So that's maybe somebody else you can make a case for going really contrarian with. And also, like if you're going to be contrarian, the opportunity cost here is very low. His asking price is less than $1. It's 95 cents, right? So I do think that's a really cheap way also you can consider differentiating some lineups. But that's a good walkthrough of kind of everything we have for this week. We looked at Thursday Night Football, looked at the main slate. If you guys have any other questions for me, hit me up on Twitter. We could answer those. Our projections page, by the way, this right here is totally free over at Stokastic.com. Just go to our page, go to the NFL header here, then click on, where is it? Premium data, projections, and then DraftKings Reignmakers NFL projections, and it's totally free. I know it's listed under premium data, but still, this is free projections over at Stokastic.com. So go check it out, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you've not done it yet, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also, if you want to claim that free starters pack over at DraftKings Reignmakers, totally 100% free, click on the link below, get an entire lineup filled out to help you play the main slate over on Sunday. Good luck with your Reignmakers lineups this weekend, guys. See you back here next week.